Good morning, CityCoiners. Welcome back to another episode of the CityCoins podcast, where we're covering everything going on in CityCoins. And today I have a prominent figure in the CityCoins community. I guess you could say he's an OG. I mean, it's supposed weird to say that since we've only been doing this for like less than a year, but he's been there since the beginning. And we got a lot to talk about, a lot to explore. So today I got Bryan on the podcast. Bryan, how you doing, my man?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me on.
Bro, it's good to see you. We got to kick it a little bit in Miami. It was good to chop it up.
Yep.
And I think we're going to float around on this. I took some notes, but you got the gift of gab, and I take that for me as like I don't have to structure too much. Let's just riff about CityCoins.
Uh-huh.
So, first question, and like I said, we'll probably dance around. So for the listener, just rock with us. But what do you find so fascinating about CityCoins?
Yeah. So I've been involved in the Stacks ecosystem for a while, since 2017. And, everyone really that I participated with, we were all kind of just waiting on stuff to happen on Stacks, right? And then, the mainnet launched and I was exploring mining and, ultimately couldn't quite figure out the economics back in January 2021, February 2021. And then, CityCoins launched and I was both blown away and also saw a ton of opportunity of like how we can make it a lot better. I watched the city of Miami initially go to accept the wallet, and it was kind of like the city council was sitting in a meeting, and the guy in the center with the gavel was like, public housing, yep, public housing. And I was kind of like, all right, there's a better way to do this, right? Like, because that money ultimately in a perfect world goes towards supporting the protocol, as we all kind of know. And as we've been moving towards CityCoins 2.0, we've sort of started to enact a lot of the changes, like giving power back to the community and supporting the community with the dollars that go to the treasury and like with utility bills and all that good stuff. But yeah, I think I came from capital markets originally, and the idea of equitizing municipal funding is pretty novel. And I think what also really appealed to me was, I have my consumer goods business, and proof of transfer as a funding mechanism kind of excited me. I think there are a lot of creative things that can be done with proof of transfer. And I think what Patrick and what CityCoins did really well was take proof of transfer and show everyone what was possible in a very simplistic way. Because these topics are kind of complex, but they're actually like CityCoins. The protocol is, the initial protocol is very, very simple. It's just kind of hard to understand for a lot of different reasons, because proof of transfer is novel and cryptocurrency is still very early, and everything is kind of different and doing things kind of differently. But I really appreciated the approach, and I think there's just a ton of possibility. I'm really excited about it.
Love it. You opened up like 3 bags of worms right there that I want to go down.
Did I? What?
Well, so first, I'm curious. You said you come from the capital markets, and I don't. And I also was never really civic minded before CityCoins at all. And I would say some kind of like in the middle. But you said equitizing municipal funding. Those are big words. I could kind of Google them together and probably grok what they mean. But for the layman's, aka myself, what does that entail?
Yeah, so municipal funding, currently is done through the debt capital markets. You've heard of municipal bonds. Municipal bonds are how cities capitalize certain projects. Capitalize meaning that's how they bring in money to support certain projects, and they're all different kinds of municipal bonds with different risks associated with them, and typically they're sold to wealthy investors and people who are deploying that cash, get a yield for doing so. When we talk about equitizing, I don't mean it in like the traditional sense of creating equity and selling it to support your community. I mean it more in terms of like you're giving everyone within a community an ability to be a stakeholder in their community and to economically benefit from fiscally supporting that community. Right? Like if you think about like CityCoins 1.0 was essentially like voluntary tax, right? Like we voluntarily paid into a protocol in hopes that that money would be used to, build out Web3 functionality, and that Web3 functionality hopefully would provide, a better world for us that's more in the line of what we want to see built. Or whatever reason you did it, I don't know, but there wasn't a direct tie back to the stakeholder, right? CityCoins 2.0 is about, and things like this do happen. They have to happen in stages, right? You can't just go from A to Z. You got to go from A to B to C to D. You got to go through all the steps, right? So it's been done in the right steps, in the right order, from my perspective. When I talk about equitizing, we now have an ability to, give people a way to participate in their community through tokenization and allow them to benefit in a slew of different ways through that tokenization. Like one of the things that, and when I say equitize, also having a say in how those proceeds are used to support their communities, right? So like, one of the things we're doing right now is we're supporting Eliminate here in Austin. So what that looks like, if you haven't had Johnny Van on, you should. Eliminate is an ISP provider. So they partner with businesses to use some of their internet bandwidth for anyone that's in the vicinity of that business. So effectively, by enrolling enough local businesses, we can carve out enough internet bandwidth to give away free Wi-Fi in certain areas, right? So, and we can gate that where you have to hold ATX coin in order to do it, right? And then we can give those businesses incentive to do it, right? Like, let's say those businesses mine a certain amount of the protocol, or they commit to mining a certain amount of ATX coin. They have the ability to offer that, and communicate their participation within the community, what they're giving to the community. It's almost like you now have a way to contribute to your community without just seeing that value flush down the drain, or seeing that value given away to a third party who is deciding how to allocate that cash or allocate that benefit. Everyone now has an equitized stake in their community if you can structure it the right way, and you can really align incentives and create win-win-win situations, which I think is pretty cool.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Would you say that you were pretty civic minded already before CityCoins, and it just kind of like lit that fire, or because for me it was not like if I got jury duty, that's the only time I was going to City Hall. And otherwise, I'm just like, I might vote, might not. And that's like all I did for Portland. So, but this has made me learn a lot about the process and interacting with the city that I'd never had before. What was the kind of journey for you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I was civic minded. I wouldn't even say now that I'm particularly civic minded. I think there are things that I care about, that I feel like I'm in a position to enact change. And, I do care about my community. Sometimes we care about things and we feel kind of powerless to do something. Other times we feel very empowered. I think that CityCoins has the ability to empower a lot of people to make changes within their community, and actually have the ability to effectuate that change, like not just pursue it, but actually effectuate it. Like one of the things that I've always been pretty zealous about has been financial literacy in particular, and education and access to education information. We haven't talked about it yet on this podcast, but like one of the initiatives of our Stacks chapter here in Austin, which ties into CityCoins, is, providing unilateral access to information and education about what it is that we're doing through One Huddle. When I was growing up, I didn't have any, financial literacy courses. I think I had a budgeting course my junior year in high school. And then even in college, like I studied finance. All of the finance that I studied was like corporate finance. So like time value of money and concepts and principles and, like corporate multiples, like Stuff that could, I guess in theory, be applied to personal finance, but like nobody is taught entrepreneurship. Nobody's taught, I guess now more it is, but like, especially not in like K through 12, the stuff that like CityCoins and entrepreneurship and all these things offer to me is freedom, right? Like there are a lot of people in our society and I have friends and people that I know who are just trapped by by their position. They're trapped by their job, or they're trapped by a relationship, or they're trapped by whatever it is. Entrepreneurship is a way to, from my perspective, to carve out a life that works for you. And it doesn't always have to fit the mold, and it takes creativity and it takes dedication and commitment like anything. But what I really value about the CityCoins project is I think the missions align, like the idea of bringing CityCoins and education and value to communities is very much in line with my personal ethos of really empowering youth and empowering kids with financial literacy and like entrepreneurial spirit kind of thing. Yeah.
I love that. And that one's tough. I was talking to my lady last night, and we were talking about how, all the things that we kind of like respect, whether it's like being fit, being wealthy, being in a healthy long-term relationship, are all because at some subconscious level, it's discipline over time that shows that. And like some people have good genes and some people have rich parents, but those are the outliers. The bulk of that is just discipline. And financial literacy is one of those core ones for safety and security. But it's tricky because most of us live paycheck to paycheck. Like if you look at the statistics, like I think it's like 60% or something of the nation lives paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. And like up until 6 months ago when I started getting disciplined thanks to crypto, I was in that same boat. And so you can't even the literacy doesn't land because it feels so like in the clouds. That's for the people who've made it. Yeah. How do you? And I'd love to hear more about. And we can maybe work way backwards into Stacks Austin, but I'd love to hear how you guys are thinking about that initiative and how you might attack it to help Austinites. What's the term?
Austinites would be the term. So just to clarify your question, you're asking how do we attack like empowering youth with financial literacy? If you guys are put this program in action, what are you guys doing? Yeah, well, I think some of that has yet to be defined. I actually have, when I lived in Brooklyn, I started a nonprofit of a chapter called Lemonade Day. So we had Lemonade Day Brooklyn. Lemonade Day is is exactly what it sounds like. Is little kids start lemonade stands, but they actually are getting a course packet on, okay, like it starts with a problem. I want to buy a bike. How much does a bike cost? Bike costs $500 or $250. Okay, so if a bike costs $250, that means I have to earn $250, which means I have to acquire like raw materials to make my lemonade, and then I have to sell it at a profit. So if my raw materials cost X amount per cup, and then you identify a value proposition, right? Like I want to sell premium strawberry lemonade for $5 a glass, or I want to sell just mixed lemonade for $1 a glass. And how many of that, how many cups do I have to sell to make my $250? And then how am I going to go about financing this? I'm just a kid. I don't have money, right? So we actually had programs where kids would apply for, debt capital. And they were supposed to pay it back, but they were all forgivable kind of thing. Or, if your parents have the financial wherewithal, you go to your parents. The idea is to give every kid who wants to participate the opportunity to do it. Right. So like you have the resource for kids who, don't have the ability to go to their parents and ask for cash. That's where the kind of forgivable loan comes into play. And then, for kids who do, they ask their parents, and the idea is their parents either get an equity percent in their business, or their parents get, get their money back at the end of it and, have to pay back the loan. So you're teaching a slew of principles here. Right. And and really you're also like teaching those kids, like they got to go out and sell, right? You're at the stand, your parents aren't going to do it for you. You got to sell that product. And it's kind of cool. The reason I kind of bring that up is just to give you an idea of what I've done in the past. There is a lemonade day here in Austin. They're in a lot of cities around the country. I'm not entirely certain what the path forward is for Austin Stacks and how that integrates. But I know I think that's something we're just gonna peripherally touch regardless. And it is something that, I would like to drill into a little bit more for sure.
Okay. No, that's a really good analogy and an example. You could see how you're taking it at like a very visceral, clear level. Like, take this thing, and then it almost disguises and obfuscates the real learning under the tables. You don't realize till you 10 years later, you're like, oh yeah, that lemonade stuff really really impacted me.
Yeah. Like, because at the end of the day, that's all business is, right? Like, you need money to buy a raw material, and if you're selling a good, right? You buy low, you sell high. You buy a good, you sell it for a profit. Identify margin. Like, okay, we have a goal. We need to make this amount of money. We need to make this amount of money in this amount of time. Here's how much I need to sell. If we're doing it for 3 days, here's how much we have to sell on average per day. Like, this is like, that's all business is, right? It's just making a plan and executing, seeing it through, right? So
perfect. Love it. Okay. I want to start diving deeper into Stacks Austin. And you said early on, you felt empowered to just help because, whatever, you just felt compelled. And I think a lot of people have that with CityCoins, where like they want to go to their city leadership and bring a CityCoin to them. And it's kind of on pause for a lot of cities right now. They're trying to work out the CityCoins DAO and work on some other things. But once you prompt yourself with that question and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go attack this and see what I can do to bring it to my city. What were those first steps for you? How'd you attack that problem?
Yeah. So, the way that it started was I just wanted Austin to be the next city, like before New York. Right. And I just reached out in the general Discord and I asked if anyone was working on that. And Matt Bell, I don't know if you know Matt Bell. He's in the community. He's local here to Austin, and I've gotten to know him. And actually, we have a couple of mutual friends as well. And he had been working on a few things, but there wasn't a ton of traction. Like, there wasn't direct effort, right? And it wasn't like committed effort. So I just kind of decided, like, all right, I'm here. I'm in a position to do this. And from that point forward, it was just more about talking to people and bringing people together. So I just decided, okay, like who do I know in our ecosystem that could potentially be interested in helping me push this forward and getting in front of council. And we put together a nice little group, and I started just to meet people in real life and realized that I was having a lot of fun meeting people in real life. Like, I remember meeting Ryan.BTC with Stacker DAOs, and just like we got together and we hung out for an afternoon, and we were just chatting about everything. And I just had a freaking blast because there was a long period of time in the community where, if you were in Stacks, you were kind of on an island in a way. Like, I couldn't nerd out with my wife about Stacks. She wasn't there, mentally. Like, she wasn't all in on the protocol. She didn't really know what was going on. Like, even some of my friends who I'd gotten into it earlier, they were just like, they had invested when I invested, but maybe not necessarily trying to be as involved as I was being. So, like, they weren't really paying attention to the projects that were coming online. And so to be able to actually just talk to somebody about that in real life. And also, like, at the time, like, everyone's kind of doxing now because they're participating in the ecosystem and it makes more sense to dox, but everyone was also pseudonymous at the time too. So, like, I didn't know anyone. I just knew that I wanted to meet people and get to know them. So anyway, it was really just about that and community building and having fun. And ultimately we were able to get in front of Councilwoman Mackenzie Kelly here And we were able to also run a parallel path with the CIO here in Austin and get in front of Mayor Adler and then bring the collective together. And ultimately that resulted in the resolutions that were passed in March to really adopt all kind of blockchain technology and cryptocurrency payments, or at least conduct due diligence on doing that. And now we're in this state where, we want to continue to unify. Like we want to bring together. It's not just about Stacks at this point. It's just about all of crypto in our community. And so we want to bring together the ETH communities and the Bitcoin communities. And we really believe that like our mission within the chapter and within what CityCoins can offer to our community can be like a unifying force for some of these polarized communities. Like, the maximalist community can be divisive, but I think there's common ground, by way of the Stacks ethos, and it's tied to Bitcoin through its consensus mechanism. And obviously then the way that interacts with CityCoins and the way CityCoins interacts with Bitcoin, all of these things, there is a solution here that can unify a lot of diverse communities. And I think that's pretty cool.
No, it's the best. I love it. It's something that Sarasti said when I interviewed him, because I asked him, if I'm an interested party in some city and I want to go to my city leadership, what's the silver bullet that I can just what's the email I can send, or what's the tactic I can use to get straight, like the highest impact thing to do? Yeah. And in true Sarasti form, he was just like, there's no silver bullet, bro. Like it's just getting on the ground level, interacting with the community, and doing the grassroots work. Yeah. And of course, it seems like a no duh after he says it, but it's that simple reframe of the question where it's like, no, there's no shortcut, bro. Like you just have to do the work of building community. And I love that you guys are doing that in a real way in Austin. Mm-hmm. What does that look like? If someone's trying to follow your blueprint and build community from this bottom up in wherever they are, what advice would you give someone trying to do that?
I'd just say it has to be authentic, and you have to. I think like the silver bullet. Going back to that comment, what I would say is like a shortcut in terms of like getting in front of city council. I can't say that you can get them to care, but just go to a council meeting and talk about what you want to talk about. And then politic it a little bit and start, finding certain council members who maybe care about, what you have to say, and find out what path there is to get things done. But what was the question again?
If someone's trying to follow in your footsteps and kind of blueprint building their own community, this kind of grassroots community, like you guys do with Stacks Austin or CityCoins Austin. Yeah. They're just like, hey, I love what you guys are doing. I want to start this in Portland. Yeah. Give me some next steps.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first, I think, like I said, it has to be authentic. I think that, you have to find out what people care about in your community. Like what's the purpose of setting up the chapter? Is it to enable CityCoins? Is it, for, are you trying to enact some kind of change within government? Like what are you trying to do? Like for us, a lot of it was centered around CityCoins initially. And I think there was a groundswell of support within the community to do it. And then the chapter kind of came after. I don't know. Going back, I guess just get out there and just talk to people. Just get out there and talk to people. Yeah, I don't know what else. I don't know really.
For all of us, we're all reclusive indoors now. The answer is just to go outside and do shit.
Yeah, I try to get out all the time. Here in Texas, we shut down a little bit, but not a lot.
Dude, when I was in Miami, because from Portland, we only didn't shut down for like 2 weeks, and then we were back to like put your fucking masks on. And in Miami, it was the exact opposite. So that was a little bit of a culture shock.
Yeah.
Okay, I only got one more question. It's kind of a big one. We've seen the protocol upgrade happen. We're seeing CityCoins evolve in real time. And you alluded to it earlier that CityCoin is kind of growing in this proper fashion. And I agree. Mm-hmm. Like CityCoin 1.0 was overly loose, probably because there wasn't a proof positive yet. And so you had to
you need a proof of concept. Yeah, you needed to get government to dance with cryptocurrency in a way that they had never done that before. You needed to get people to care, right? So the objective in CityCoins 1.0 is very different than the objective in CityCoins 2.0. Objective in CityCoins 1.0 is arguably accomplished in phenomenal fashion. And now CityCoins 2.0 is about that iteration.
I totally agree. Yeah, I think, like you said, seeing the gavel get banged and they vote and pass it, like for something crypto that's US based was huge. And so now we're seeing CityCoiners kind of like, from my perspective, we're taking back some of the responsibility and kind of like charting the path a little more aggressively on what we think is a proper use of some of these protocols. But to be honest, I've doing so much now, I haven't followed it as closely as I'd like to. So what's your pulse been on CityCoins 2.0? And connected to that, how do you see the future of CityCoins? What's the kind of like ideal future as we're evolving in real time?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, CityCoins 2.0 is doing everything the right way. Like, and I think this has been the ethos of Stacks from the get-go. The reason I was even interested in getting involved in Stacks is because everybody involved and every decision made has always been, from my perspective, and I think with the intention of doing things the right way. And this is no different, right? So the community is highly engaged. There are multiple weekly calls. I'm sure you know, because you've been on a lot of them. There are multiple weekly calls about community governance, about how we're pushing forward in different cities, about how chapters are interacting with CityCoins and interacting with the Stacks Foundation and creating, positive accountability loop, about how, we're right now we're exploring in 2.0 this introduction of a DAO and how the voting will work within the DAO, and how that's, people are held accountable to that, or how we get the most impact and benefit from that. Do we want to involve cities in that decision making? If so, what does that look like? How do we give the cities control so that they're involved, but not totally give them the keys to the castle, so that they can have CityCoins get wrapped up in bureaucracy, or have it go towards things that don't necessarily support the protocol. So I think, all of this governance is pinning this down as the next step. And I think the community is doing it the right way, right? Like, we're collectively aligned. Like, no new city is going to be launched until we nail this down. And once we nail it down, it's going to make a big difference. It's going to have a huge impact. As that pertains to Austin, what it does is it gives us time to put in place some of these utility builds, like the Element 8 thing I told you about with the free Wi-Fi in Austin. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are tons of other things being built. I'm a huge advocate for the way that it's being done, and especially like this bear market is almost it's a blessing if you think about it. I mean, people stop price scrutinizing, and at the end of the day, like, the building that was happening in CityCoins today is the building that was happening in CityCoins from the outset. And now we honestly just get to put our heads down and get it done, right? Like, I get to put my head down and I get to build community, and we're not in any rush. We're not in any hurry. Ultimately, we care about putting together the best solution to equitize municipal funding and have it be something that can be readily adopted in any city at any time, provide universal access to information education to people within that community who effectively become stakeholders in their native city coin if a city launches, and have them be able to benefit from active participation if they choose, or if they don't have to, but providing enough incentive for them to want to participate, making it fun and also making it rewarding. And I see all of those possibilities. And I think that's why you have a community of folks who are highly engaged and highly motivated without really a lot of outside gratification. Yeah.
No, that was my exact thought is I feel like it'd be hard to find a more engaged group that's been hit by like more aggressive price action than the CityCoins group, where it's like, okay, cool, the market's going crazy or the market doesn't love us, but we're still the signal to noise ratio in CityCoins is insane.
But the reality is, like, what the price is not encapsulating is the yield. Most people who deployed cash into CityCoins have made a lot of their principal back through the yield from CityCoins.
That's true. Yeah.
And so you'd be hard pressed, I think, to find somebody. I mean, granted, it's down and you prefer it not to be. That's just, it goes without saying. But yeah, I don't think, like, most of the people who have like deployed capital into mining are the same people who are active in the community. And, even the people who have been vocal about NYC coin and the tokenomics are also people who have been active in the community and are supportive of the community and what's being built. It's not like most of the griping is coming from third parties who don't necessarily hold exposure. And a lot of those opinions are very short-sighted and don't particularly understand what it is that CityCoins is actually doing or how it actually works.
Yeah, I think there's something about Stacks that almost inherently longens your time horizon to where you just make better decisions overall. And this goes back to financial literacy and all those things. Like, if you expand your time horizon and your goal accordingly, your chance for success is so much higher because you're just going to make better decisions along that path. And we're seeing that from the way that Stacks was built and the way that CityCoins is moving and adjusting in real time.
Yeah, I have no problem with Stacks flying under the radar. I really don't. Like, ultimately, what's being built is going to be built. Stacks trading at $1,000 is not going to accelerate the rate at which we're building. So let's just build. Like, I'm pretty amped up about it.
I couldn't agree more. I got no more questions. Any closing thoughts or things I didn't touch on? We covered a lot.
Yeah. No, dude, I appreciate you having me on. I thought I like doing stuff like this. I would like to do it again. If you'll have me on again, we can keep talking about the evolution of CityCoins here in Austin and our Stacks chapter. We got some cool events coming up. We got one coming up on Thursday, the 19th. So anyone who's out here in Austin, please come. And I will shamelessly plug my business at Skinny. If you like ketogenic and gluten-free pasta, It's Skinny is for you. And even if you don't, It's Skinny is still for you. It's easier to cook than regular pasta. It's 9 calories per bag, and it tastes great.
You just throw it in the microwave. It doesn't get any easier.
It doesn't get any easier. It's ready in 2 minutes. It's easier to cook than regular pasta.
Buy CityCoins, hold them, participate in the community, and buy Skinny pasta. That's what we learned today.
Eat Skinny pasta. Eat Skinny.
This is perfect. And I will say, as far as doing follow-up, 100%, the reason why I do these for a half hour long is, one, just it makes it a little easier on myself. But two, I like these like time capsules where, like, every 6 months to a year, you got to come back on the show. There'll be a ton of stuff that happened, and it'll be like little history markers on, like, what did Bryan talk about when, CityCoins Austin was, 2 months old to now it's over a year old. Like, look how far they've come. So definitely that would be a thing.
I like that.
Perfect. Bryan, man, this has been fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm sure all the CityCoins out there will as well. So thank you for coming on the pod, my man.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I appreciate it.